Many things could have happened. Your project was not funded. The idea that you thought about for a long time and took you even longer to propose it was discarded. Your boss simply said, "We don't need you anymore." Or even that person you wanted to spend quality time with, he didn't show the same intentions as you. Let's talk about rejection. It can be devastating. It can make you feel worthless. But imagine a world where rejection, every no or words that knock down your ideas, no longer make you feel weak, but propel you forward, always building one more step towards greatness. A good person dyes events with his own color and turns everything that happens to his own benefit. Seneca. Do you feel left out, ignored, or undervalued? It's time to turn the tables. I have 12 incredible tips for you that will help you hack your brain and make it see rejection as an opportunity to achieve greatness. And not only that, let's also give a message to those people who have rejected you. Show them that you are not less than them. Before we start, we can make these tips reach more people. Just like it and activate the notification bell. Well, without further delay, let's begin. Tip number 1, if they ignore you, ignore them too. Don't let the indifference of life make you feel small. On the contrary, overcome it with your attitude. And no, it's not pettiness to ignore those who ignore you, but a way to affirm your self-worth. By not giving it importance, you are showing them your value. It's as if you put a mirror in front of them, reflecting their behavior without affecting you. Being rejected is a painful experience. Yes, it can affect our self-esteem and our mood. However, we should not let rejection define us or make us feel inferior. One way to deal with rejection is to adopt a Stoic attitude. That is, a philosophy that teaches us to accept the things we cannot control and to focus on what does depend on us. If they ignore you, ignore them too. Don't waste your time or energy on people who don't value or appreciate you. Don't give them the power to affect your happiness or your inner peace. Remember that your value does not depend on the opinion of others, but on your own self-esteem and virtue. Seek to surround yourself with people who love and respect you and who help you grow and improve. As the Stoic philosopher Epictetus said, "It is not things that disturb us, but the opinions we have of them." Don't let rejection disturb you, but see it as an opportunity to learn, to strengthen yourself, and to move on with your life. How do you achieve this without falling into resentment? Easy. Focus on your life, your goals, your joy. Dedicate yourself to doing things that give you something, whether it's playing sports, reading, learning something new, or simply enjoying the company of those who do appreciate you. Tip number 2, don't react emotionally. Yes, I know, rejection can be painful, and it can tempt us to react impulsively and let our emotions get the better of us. But there is a powerful tool of the Stoic manual, calm. When someone rejects us, it's easy to fall into frustration or sadness. Stoicism suggests adopting a calm and conscious response. This does not mean repressing our feelings, but not letting them manage us. When we are ignored, instead of getting angry or seeking approval, let's distance ourselves. Let's ask ourselves, why does this affect me? Many times it is not the rejection itself, but our own insecurities that damage us the most. This is where we need to be proactive. The Stoics teach us that we cannot control what happens to us, but how we respond to it. Rejection is an external circumstance that does not depend on us, but on the preferences, interests, and expectations of others. Therefore, we should not take it personally, but as an opportunity to learn, improve, and move forward, but not for other people. It grows emotionally and psychologically for you. Psychologists advise us not to get carried away by the negative thoughts that rejection can generate, such as self-criticism, shame, or guilt. These thoughts are irrational and distort reality. Instead, we must adopt a positive and constructive attitude, recognizing our strengths, valuing our qualities, and seeking support from people who love us. As the philosopher Seneca said, "It is not because things are difficult that we do not dare. It is because we do not dare that they are difficult." Rejection is not the end of the world, but a challenge that we can overcome with wisdom and strength. And are they ignoring us? Let's breathe. Let's reflect on why this moment does not define us. It's just that, an instant. Adopt this mindset. Yes, I know it's not easy, but it's transformative. When we master calm in the face of rejection, we are not only managing a difficult situation, we are growing. Tip number 3, get them out of your mind. Get them out of your mind if they ignore you. This advice may seem simple, but it has a deep Stoic and psychological basis. We already know that the basic rule that the Stoic sages live by and teach us is that we should not worry about what we cannot control, and that we can only intervene in our own mind and in our own actions. That way, if someone ignores us, we can't do anything to change their attitude, but we can change ours. We can stop caring about that person, feeling hurt or rejected, and relying on their approval. We can focus on what we can do, what makes us happy, and what helps us grow. We can free ourselves from the bondage of other people's opinions and live by our own principles and values. Psychology also supports this advice, as it shows us that many times people ignore us for reasons that have nothing to do with us, but with their own problems, insecurities, or preferences. We cannot know what is going through the minds of others, nor can we assume that we are responsible for their reactions. What we can do is take care of our self-esteem, our confidence, and our mental health. We can seek support from those who do value and respect us, and we can cultivate healthy, positive relationships. We can accept ourselves and others as they are without demanding or expecting anything. As Epictetus said, do not depend on the admiration of others. It's just up to you. Look for activities that add value and open your mind. Read a book that makes you think. Do a physical activity that challenges you. Collaborate with a social cause that makes you see things from another perspective. These actions are not just ways to distract yourself, they are steps to get to know yourself better and develop yourself. Each experience shapes and strengthens you, making you more flexible and more capable. Tip number 4, prove your worth. Instead of being dejected by rejection, consider it an opportunity to demonstrate your character. When you're excluded from a meeting or passed over for a promotion, stay calm. Instead of falling into victimhood or resentment, transform that emotion into positive action. But how? Develop a project that showcases your skills or propose to lead a new initiative. Your merit is not diminished by a lack of recognition from others. It's an opportunity to stand out more, without letting yourself be affected by the shadows of disdain. Remember that old saying, in bad weather, a good face. It is not just a set phrase, it is a strategy of action. It's a way to hack your mindset and boost your best self. Rejection is not an indicator of your worth. It's a reorientation to where you're most useful. If you're turned down for a position, perhaps it's the universe pushing you towards something that better fits your talents and passions. I like to say, there is no evil that good does not come. Of course, we must do everything possible not to fall into the misery of a bad moment. I invite you to seek that good to come. Use this as a stimulus to re-examine and readjust what your strengths are, how you can change to get the most out of them. Recognize that rejection is a part of life and that you can't always control the decisions of others. Be grateful for the opportunity you had and keep a positive attitude. Reflect on what you learned from rejection and set new goals. Counsel number 5, cut off contact. The value of silence should not be underestimated, especially when faced with rejection. If someone has treated you with indifference or contempt, you may be tempted to seek an explanation or reconciliation. But I propose something better. Do the opposite. Take advantage of the silence. It's not a manipulative tactic, it's a way to regain control. When you decide not to act impulsively, not to send desperate messages or calls, you are creating space. This space is not just for the other person, it's for yourself to readjust, to remember that your worth doesn't depend on someone's opinion. In this way you say, I love myself too much to beg or insist. This attitude is not only pragmatic, it is liberating. So now you know, if someone rejects you, the best thing you can do is cut off contact with that person. It's not about being proud or spiteful, but about protecting your self-esteem and emotional well-being. Keeping in touch with those who reject you will only make you suffer more and feed an unrealistic hope. In addition, it will prevent you from moving forward and meeting other people who can value and reciprocate you. From a Stoic approach, cutting off contact with those who reject you is a way of exercising your freedom and your control over what depends on you. From a psychological approach, cutting off contact with the person who rejects you is a way to avoid intermittent reinforcement and anxious attachment. Intermittent reinforcement occurs when you receive contradictory or fickle signals from the other person, leading to confusion and anxiety. Anxious attachment occurs when you feel an excessive need to be with the other person, which makes you dependent on them and afraid of losing them. Both phenomena can generate an emotional addiction that prevents you from seeing reality and causes you to harm yourself. As the French philosopher Jean-Paul Sartre said, "It doesn't matter what others do to you. What matters is what you do with what others do to you." Tip number 6. Prove them wrong. No, with this I don't mean that rejection is bad. It makes you grow, yes, and this is the reason for my next advice. Prove them wrong. But I want you to understand something before, and that is that although my advice is based on proving that they were wrong to reject you, what you should seek is to grow for yourself, and in this way you will demonstrate the obvious. Don't work on yourself for someone else. Work on yourself for yourself, and that alone will give a message to the people who rejected you. Stay away from resentment, frustration, and conflict. This will prevent you from having healthy and harmonious relationships with others. This advice can be applied to any area of life in which we face rejection, whether it is work, social, or love. Now, how do we grow to show that we are better than before? Let's take an example. An idea to help in your work that you thought about for a long time was rejected. We'll dive into learning, practice tirelessly, and show a level of proficiency you didn't even know you had. This isn't about a big eye-opener for skeptics. It's about quietly building a fortress of competence and self-confidence. Take a general approach to where you are. Try to understand what your superiors are looking for, analyze your idea, find the disadvantages, and improve them. Support your idea with bases, whether legal, statistical, or even precedents. Stimulate the attention of your superiors and get noticed for good. Still remember that on this journey of life, the greatest victory is the realization that the only validation that really matters is the one you give yourself. Tip number 7, get out there and have fun. The usual response to rejection is to isolate ourselves and keep the bitter taste of the experience, but there's another way to look at it. We cannot give so much importance to the opinion of someone who does not give us the same importance, so I get out and have fun. Life is enriched when we dare to step outside of what is familiar to us. We not only seek joy to have a good time, but also to strengthen ourselves in the face of rejection. Face that impulse by intentionally seeking joy. This does not mean denying your emotions, but giving them a new scenario. Whether it's discovering a new hobby or taking up an old hobby, the act itself becomes a statement of defiance, which downplays rejection. Humans are social beings, and there is enormous strength in shared experiences. On your way to overcoming rejection, remember the value of your tribe. Stoicism teaches us to accept things we can't control, such as the judgment or opinion of others. In this sense, going out and having fun could be a way to practice indifference to the outside and to cultivate inner joy. Psychologist Albert Ellis, founder of rational emotive behavioral therapy, proposes that rejection is not something that affects us directly, but depends on the irrational beliefs we have about ourselves and others. Thus, going out and having fun could be a way to question those beliefs and replace them with more rational and positive ones. However, both Stoicism and psychology also warn us of the risks of escaping or evading the problem rather than facing it. Going out and having fun should not be an excuse to deny or suppress the pain or frustration we feel from rejection, but an opportunity to overcome it and learn from it. As the philosopher Seneca said, it is not that we have little time, but that we lose a lot. Life is long enough to accomplish the greatest undertakings, but if it dissipates into no occupations, if no good use is made of it, when one is in the last trance, it feels as if it has passed quickly. Use every laugh shared, every story told, as a subtle reminder that you are more than the sum of your stumbles. This is where the real magic happens. Venture into the unknown. Rejection may seem like a closed door, but it actually opens many more. Tip number 8. Build your social status. No one always likes to go unnoticed, not to be taken into account, to feel neglected or almost imperceptible. But Stoicism invites us to transform those moments of contempt into stimuli for personal progress. Instead of craving recognition, focus on self-improvement and social collaboration. Creating our own social status means valuing ourselves for our virtues and actions and not for the opinion of others. Thus, we avoid depending on the approval of others and become more resilient and autonomous. This is not about ascending a social hierarchy, it is about ascending your own hierarchy of self-evolution. Activities such as physical training, researching hobbies, or progressing in your profession are not only obligations, they are your resources to sculpt a more powerful and tenacious self. Consider publicizing your career, not for the praise, but for the bonding. When you comment on your concerns or successes, make it a link to find others who vibrate with your story. This is not a tactic to accumulate followers, but an honest effort to find similar souls. From a psychological point of view, this advice can also be beneficial for our mental health. Rejection can lead to feelings of loneliness, anxiety, depression, or low self-esteem. However, if we create our own social status, we can develop a sense of belonging, identity, and purpose. We can surround ourselves with people who appreciate us for who we are and not for what they expect us to be. We can cultivate our passions, skills, and goals and take pride in our accomplishments. This Stoic mindset is an effective tool for navigating today's world, turning the stream of contempt into a powerful wave of positive transformation. Tip number 9. Act as if they don't exist. Stoicism accepts rejection as something that does not depend on us and that should not affect our inner happiness. The Stoics believed that we can only control our own actions and attitudes, and that we should be indifferent to external things beyond our power. Thus, rejection would be one of those external things that we should not let disturb us. As Marcus Aurelius said, "Do not be affected by the opinions of others. Stay straight in your purpose and walk joyfully on the path of life." From a psychological point of view, the advice to act as if the rejection does not exist can have a positive or negative effect depending on how it is applied. On the one hand, it can help overcome the fear of rejection and develop greater self-esteem and confidence. Some studies have shown that people who self-affirm after an experience of rejection feel more optimistic and motivated to move forward. On the other hand, it can lead to denial or repression of the feelings of pain, frustration, or sadness that rejection can cause. This can be detrimental to mental and emotional health, as it prevents you from properly processing what happened and learning from the experience. As Carl Jung said, "What you deny subdues you, what you accept transforms you." The best way to respond to someone who treats you with indifference is with serenity. It's not about being weak or indifferent, it's about taking care of your own well-being. If someone chooses to ignore you, don't beg them. Don't waste your energy trying to capture their interest or engage in dialogue. Instead, focus your interest elsewhere. In a social context, such as a meeting, this might involve addressing someone who appreciates your presence. Start a chat there. It's about knowing that your value doesn't depend on someone else's approval. In unavoidable situations where you have to interact with this person, maintain respect. Keep conversations short, to the point, and without personal depth. By choosing not to engage in a one-sided fight, you're not just leaving a person behind, you're moving toward better opportunities, healthier interactions, and a calmer state of mind. Tip number 10. Don't beg for attention. In the face of rejection, don't beg for attention. This attitude only shows a lack of self-esteem and self-control, which makes you dependent on the approval of others. Stoicism and psychology agree that the wisest thing to do is to accept rejection as an inevitable reality, which does not define your value or your happiness. Instead of holding on to what you can't change, focus on what's in your power, your attitude, your actions, your virtues. This way you will be able to cultivate a full and dignified life without letting yourself be carried away by irrational passions. As Seneca said, it is not up to us to be rich, but it is up to us to be happy. In the face of inattention, the Stoic attitude is not begging to be seen, but affirming your own self-esteem and independence. When someone despises you, it's not an invitation for you to try harder to capture their interest. Rather, it is an occasion to examine your inner self and confirm your own worth. Stoicism tells us that our self-esteem should not depend on the approval of others. It is about maintaining a solid self-worth, aware that your dignity is not at stake. Build a life that fulfills you, no matter how others see it. May your confidence and security be the result of your personal development and achievements, not a spectacle for an audience. This Stoic approach is not just a way to cope with rejection, but to overcome it by focusing on what really matters, your own path of growth and fulfillment. You turn rejection into an opportunity to strengthen your resolve and deepen your sense of self-worth. It is about strengthening our self-esteem and our confidence, recognizing our value and our qualities without depending on the validation of others. In this way, we avoid falling into emotional dependence or fear of abandonment, and we respect ourselves and others. As the French philosopher Jean-Paul Sartre said, "It doesn't matter what others do to you. What matters is what you do with what others do to you." Counsel number 11. Be kind but emotionally distant. The Stoics held that happiness depends on living in accordance with nature, that is, with reason and virtue, and not being disturbed by passions or external events. Thus, in the face of rejection, a Stoic would not be carried away by anger, resentment, or sadness, but would accept the situation with equanimity and continue to act with kindness towards others. This is a way to deal with indifference. Respond with kindness, but without letting it affect your emotional world. It's not about being indifferent in turn, but about taking care of your inner peace. When someone treats you with disdain, you may feel hurt or upset. However, Stoicism invites us to face these moments not with emotional turmoil, but with a serene heart. Offer a smile, a kind greeting, or a simple wish for well-being, but do so without expecting anything in return. I even assure you that this will affect the person who has wanted to affect you psychologically or verbally more. Your kindness is a virtue, not an exchange. Keeping emotional distance does not mean raising barriers, but establishing limits. It's knowing that while you can choose your actions, you can't choose how others react. This distance is not a sign of weakness, but a sign of strength and self-esteem. Psychology also supports the idea that maintaining emotional distance can help overcome rejection and avoid unnecessary suffering. Some studies have shown that people who become emotionally detached from negative outcomes have less stress, anxiety and depression, and more self-esteem and well-being. In addition, being kind but distant can facilitate the grieving process and promote emotional closure. As the French philosopher Michel de Montaigne said, "The greatest thing in the world is to know how to be master of oneself." Counsel number 12. Don't rebel your struggle. Stoicism invites us to cultivate emotional resilience in the face of life's difficulties. When someone ignores us, we can feel hurt and vulnerable. However, instead of letting ourselves be carried away by pain, we can maintain our dignity and self-esteem. It is not about denying or repressing our emotions, but about recognizing and managing them wisely. It is not about pretending that nothing affects us, but about showing that we are capable of moving forward with confidence and determination. It is not about impressing others, but about affirming our own value. By acting calmly and confidently, we not only send a message to the world, but we also reassure ourselves. It is a way of practicing the Stoic philosophy of controlling what is in our hands, our actions, our responses, our behavior. In doing so, we not only preserve our integrity and respect, but also develop our inner strength and stability. Rejection is an inevitable reality that we all face at some point. However, we don't have to let it affect us negatively and make us miserable. A Stoic would tell us that what disturbs us does not depend on us but on external factors that we cannot control. What is the point of giving so much power to the opinions and actions of others over our emotional and mental well-being? As Marcus Aurelius said, tying your happiness to what others say or do is ambition. Tying it to what happens to you is self-indulgence. Tying her to what you do is sanity. The Stoics were also aware that rejection was an ever-present possibility. For this reason, they trained and prepared to face it with serenity. A Stoic is never deluded and expects things beyond his control. They have imagined the worst scenario, they have seen how a situation can go against their wishes, and they have accepted whatever happens. Thus, their initial reaction to rejection is one of calm and equanimity. For example, Seneca used to start each day by reviewing or rehearsing his plans, say for traveling. And then, mentally, he would go over the possible obstacles or setbacks that could arise. There could be a storm, the captain could get sick, the ship could be assaulted by pirates. By doing this exercise, Seneca was always ready for adversity and incorporated it into his plans. I was set up for failure or success. And let's face it, a pleasant surprise is much better than an unpleasant one. But does that mean that because we expected rejection, we should resign ourselves to it? No, of course not. It is then that we must remember the famous Stoic phrase with which Epictetus opens his manual, "Is it in my possession?" For more tips like this, follow the channel, and you know this is not goodbye, it is, so see you later.